guys, we're going to label them frauds.
Mm-hmm.
We're going to label them the real thing, or maybe in between, like a part of a fraud. But we're going to start with Sammy Gravano. Now,
Yeah.
so we know that Sammy was the real deal. I mean, he was walking next to John Gotti for at least a year, right?
Yeah.
So explain to us who Sammy was.
Yeah, I mean, he was in the life from the early 70s, from like 1970. He started off as a Colombo associate. Then he got in some issues with, I believe, Shorty Sparrow and those folks, and he ended up going into Tato's crew with the Gambino family, and eventually gets on the hit that took out Castellano. Or what I would say is that he was part of the planning of it. Some of the other pieces of that story is suspect, but he did become the consigliere and underboss of the Gambino family, and then he testified against John Gotti. So we know all that to be true, and he wrote a book and all that.
He wrote the book, but
Mm-hmm.
then he came onto YouTube, and
Yeah.
Sammy Gravano does not have to lie. He could tell his story. It's a very interesting story.
Yeah, exactly.
But the fact of the matter is, he's been caught in lie against over and over again basically making himself a lot bigger than what he was, and he doesn't even have to do that, but he chooses to do that.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, in my opinion, he's when we look at it, he's becoming more and more a fraud each week when he does his lives. And so it seemed like his first year on YouTube was kind of matched what was in his book Underboss, and then since then he's felt this need to, what I say is, embellish. He wants to change history, and then he looks at each episode he looks at every show that he does as an episode where it's like a Hollywood production, and he has to be the hero.
And he puts on his Sammy cape, runs out with his Sammy suit on, and stops traffic and leaps tall buildings in a single bound.
Yeah, exactly.
So, do you think? So with Sammy, do you think we could really call him a fraud, being that he was the real thing? I mean, how would you label Sammy in this?
Yeah. So right. So what I would say is that when we look at these folks, we have frauds, we have people that were the real deal, and then we have people that were a mix of fraudulent and real. And so I'd put him in that last category. He's got definitely a lot of truth about him, a real deal, but then there's a lot of made up stories. So you have to put him in that mix of lies and reality.
Is he making the stories up, or is he embellishing the stories?
Yeah, embellishing for the most part. I mean, some things might actually be a total lie, like saying that he was there in the traffic with John Gotti at his
and John Gotti was his driver.
Right, and that might be a total lie. But most of the stuff is that there's some elements of the story that's true, but he's went in there and rewrote the script.
He did, and even the government bought his story on rewriting the script. They just believed what he said.
Yeah, exactly, because they knew that he was smart enough to know, or maybe someone told him, his handlers, that the government, what they wanted John Gotti, and the big thing they wanted to tie him to was the Paul Castellano hit. So that was what he did.
And so we would list in this genre Sammy's number 2. There's no doubt about that. Is that correct?
Yeah, exactly. A number of subs and views and all that. Yeah.
Okay. So the next guy so we're gonna say Sammy embellishes his stories.
Mm-hmm.
There's no doubt about his importance on the street. He embellishes his story, and he's 100% an informant. Is that the best way to describe him?
Yes, it is.
So his score basically to us would be the real deal that loves to embellish.
Yeah.
Okay. Okay.